Well, we have a great thing here, and I think we, our two board members here, associates that are mobile techs, and I know the rest of us use Identifix. Identifix is phenomenal, right?
Same type of a thing.
Puts you guys in the ballpark, but of course, sometimes, like anything, it may not work, because that may not be your problem. So what do you do at that point? What do you guys do? I know you look at Identifix first, but.
Well, one of the things that I do when I go to a shop and I'm not as familiar with the system as I should be, is I'll take 5 minutes, I'll pull up AllData or Mitchell, and I'll read about the system. You go under, I think it's theory and operation.
Description.
And take 5 or 10 minutes and just read on how that system works, and believe it or not, it helps a lot on the diagnostic part of it.
Ed, I gotta really agree with you, especially AllData has that really in-depth, you go through fuel system or whatever, when you read that little thing on the side, that is super, super helpful information. So, good tip.
Well, I do the same thing that I do with Identifix first. If I can't find it with Identifix, reading to what guys, what they've done, and then I just go from there. And if I can't find it, then I go to AllData.
What do you do, Adam, since you said you didn't?
Well, the problem is, a lot of the time I'm getting there, and we've already done all the Identifix stuff. And it's, some of the cars are just, they're so odd that they don't fall into this category. So you gotta start from scratch with it. You don't do exactly whatever. I'll go.
But you get more odd cars because you're an odd person.
Yeah. That's what happens.
No, well, yeah. No, but you do get a lot of odd cars, and that's true. If it's not something that's on the database, what do you do? So how about you, Mr. Bear? What do you do?
Well, the first step would definitely be Identifix. And run through what they have to say about it. And sometimes their things are outstanding because they stop you from going to the silver bullet type of repair. I mean, I'm sure all of you know. I mean, you got a blower motor; it only blows on high. We've been there, done that. You're going to put a resistor in it.
Right.
And I forget what particular GM it was. But it had to do with the ignition switch in that on that particular one, and it, by reading through that, I'd be the first to admit that without doing that, if it had a conventional resistor, it probably would have got the resistor first and not solved the problem, and it definitely can work in your favor that way, as well as looking not always going because 50 people replaced the vent valve front or evap system. Well, mine's going to be 51.
Yeah, sometimes it works,
sometimes it doesn't. And unfortunately,
What about the other situation where you go for the pattern failure, you replace the part, it doesn't fix it, and you figure it's something else, but in reality you got a bad part?
And
it happens.
Those aren't fun.
I had 4 defective brake light switches on the same car 6 months ago.
Why do they have
Dealer.
Yeah,
Dealer.
At the dealer, brand new.
Don't mention the dealer.
I can never seem to nail them down sometimes, especially a lot of European cars with their brake switch problems.
But you get stuff, I
Or they
remember.
cut on them. You won't, it'll be fine when you get the car.
Well, it turned out what this was the switches were good, and here that's what started this whole thought. Is if you test that switch, the switch has no voltage drop. When it's connected, it's switching and unswitching when it should.
Yeah.
The difference was, it really wasn't exactly when it should. This sent out, it had 2 brake light switches, and they both latched simultaneously, but they both unlatched 2 milliseconds off. And the signal was being sent, one part was going to the body module for the brake lights, and the other signal was going to the ABS, and there was a CAN communication between the two. And it was comparing the 2 signals, and when it saw one up and one down, it set a code.
They saved the nickel on those parts.
Right. And it was timing. It was just a minor thing in that switch. Really, the software should have been written to not be so sensitive.
That's correct.
Right.
That's a glitch in the software.
Right.
But that's the way it was.
But sometimes you can get bad stuff. One of our ex-board members who moved away, Tony Mattioli, when he had fuel pumps, 6 of them were bad. And I tested them here, and look, brand new. We're not going to mention the manufacturer of it, but boom, boom, boom. Then he finally went to an aftermarket one. Here's the OE one that was no good, it must have been a batch of them. As soon as he bought an aftermarket one, it worked.
That's frustrating.
Very
You can't,
frustrating.
you can't always say one source is good
So,
and the other one's bad.
You know, we all know sometimes aftermarket stuff kind of kills you, but sometimes aftermarket stuff is great. Something like Welds Ignition. Welds makes a lot of OE stuff, and they fixed a lot of different problems that they've had on some of the original stuff in manufacturing.
So you can say that they make it,
They make it
Oh.
very well.
Well,
You know, any manufacturer who's got a problem out there should be repairing it, should be fixing it,
Well, they're
correcting
big,
their
but-
problem.
but-
They've been around for
They're-
a while, so they're one of the companies that does some R&D
Mhm.
and, you know, puts some money into that, whereas some companies just stamp stuff out, copy whatever it is. That's why now you change some things, you need to program it, including the battery when you're talking about.
yeah,
You know, put a window regulator, it ain't gonna work unless you go in, okay?
Sure.
You know why? They want to really protect the stuff they make. You can't blame these companies. Craig, do we have questions there?
We do, but I just want to plug WorldPack is the big reason why I don't have more comebacks.
Okay. WorldPack is a good resource. I know quite a
Yes.
few guys in this room. Here,
yeah.
the
Oh, I love,
BMW shop for years.
when I
that
had
he
my
did.
shop, I got deliveries every day from them.
And Neil, I know, does a hell of a lot with WorldPack.
Mhm.
I don't know if you do Bear up there, but
Oh, time to time we'll use them. They've just gotten recently into us delivering. We were never.
Oh, you
You
weren't
had to
into
wait,
zone.
you had to wait for
We were
UPS.
UPS.
you can get it through CarQuest.
I was getting 3 deliveries a day.
Right, no,
That was-
that's, they're
Great.
breaking into the delivery, but it's very small.
they do a good job. Their website looks pretty neat. I mean, I see Craig going on it, these guys ordering parts. They seem to be pretty damn good. Whoa,
Well,
let
lightning
there be
doesn't
light.
Well, there's a question online, Alan Boggs in New Orleans.
Ah, Alan, hopefully you're above water, my friend.
So
Or New Orleans again.
if you have a lean condition and suspect it's due to an intake manifold gasket leak, you might think smoke machine. But I've heard techs say some intake gasket leaks are so small you might not find it by smoking it. Is this true? And if it is, what alternative do you have to prove out an intake gasket leak?
Okay, let's go around the horn. Who wants to take that? I got my
I'll
opinion.
take it. It doesn't sound like a big enough leak to cause a problem. You can't see it.
I disagree
Unless it's a
though.
throttle, it's
I
got-
disagree. I think sometimes they're thermal in nature and it can be big enough, say cold, usually cold.
Exactly.
And so you
We
may be
weren't talking
testing,
thermal though, we're talking.
you might be testing it under a slightly different condition that's causing the actual
And I was
problem.
gonna bring
Sure.
that up.
Right.
Alan Ford's had that problem where unless the car was cold, and this is always a good thing to look at freeze frame. Freeze frame tells you if the car was hot or cold, what the RPM was. I found those gaskets to leak on the intake, smoking it when it's cold. Once that thing was warm, and I'm talking maybe around a minute,
It was tight.
you couldn't get the damn one.
Well, less than a minute, I have a BMW in my shop right now where it looks like it's probably a intake leak, but it doesn't set a code. And it feels like a misfire, but then all of a sudden it just goes away. And if you don't hear it, you have to throw smoke, but I have to smoke cold.
You know, the other
conditions.
The other thing that I've used over the years was this little vacuum leak detector thing.
Right?
You know,
Ultrasonic,
something-
ultrasonic.
Ultrasound is phenomenal.
I was
But
just gonna say chassis or something like that works really
Yes.
Yeah, the ultrasound, ultraphonics, but I think the name is wrong. They're out of North Carolina.
Marksman, I think they are. Who are you talking about?
It's not the other one that we've used. Can't think of the name. In fact, Alan, I think I told you about that, but I don't remember the name of it. I have a very expensive unit from them, as well as a cheaper unit. Actually, if you can get your hands on a White Industry, it was a $300 unit, kicks ass ultrasound.
I have something like that.
Very, very good. New York City bought a bunch of them. They work
Like
real
a-
good.
Like a turtle kind of
It's a
shape
little,
to it.
just a little box, and I have one of them when Frank Casal worked for White years back. I had gotten one of them, and what a great investment, because not only can you use it on vacuum leaks, wind noises, air conditioner leaks, and evacs. Okay, but that's ultrasound, different than a chassis unit. I would say overall, smoke machines are quite helpful, in my opinion, not only for vacuum leaks, but even when you're doing a cylinder leak down. You put smoke in because shops are noisy. And you want to show your customer they got a bent exhaust valve or an open exhaust valve or something, and they see smoke coming out of the tailpipe and the car ain't running. Hello. you've proved that point right
Now, the other thing about smoke machines, modern ones, as long as you have dye, you could have a really small leak, as long as you can, for an intake manifold, you'd have to be able to go with a bore scope inside. But if you ran that smoke machine from the outside with it running a little bit, eventually you'll have some dye on the inside. If we smoke it the other way, I'm not so sure it's going to be as visible, because it'll be between the flange and the head, and it'll be trapped out of sight.
The other vacuum works that I see, it's
Well, he's saying how to check it.
yeah.
But that's true too. Always make sure the vacuum line, sometimes it looks like it should be connected somewhere.
Right.
But that's not the place it's connected.
Correct.
That may be the breather.
You look at your short-term fuel trim, if you got it like V6, V8, see which side is running meter.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
That might put you towards that side.
Or in European cars, it's additive and multiplicative, but it's
Yeah.
Very
similar
good point,
but
Ed.
different idea. It's really low load and medium load,
Right.
as opposed to short and long term.
Anyone else?
Well, you can see that too in the, on a Ford, in your fuel trims too. You'll see that on their intakes leaking like you were referring to. And on them, it's sometimes not a bad, to look at the pattern failures and case studies on those if you're not really seeing anything and not sure, because I've gotten quite a few of those Fords apart, and the O-rings look no different than the new ones going in.
I just use, with that,
It
I
came with
learned
a
my
kit
lesson.
with the grommets, and OE comes as a kit, I believe the last ones.
Yeah, screw that. I just use the right stuff by Permatex. Put a little around there, you won't have a leak anymore.
Of
that
the-
stuff.
Of the,
Right over, use
Existing
the
ones
existing
in the
gasket,
gasket?
just put a little bit around there, because I used to do a lot of them.
Now, the other thought is on
They
modern
work real
cars, they still have things like vacuum power boosters, and you can have a vacuum leak through a booster.
Mhm.
And a smoke machine with a check valve in that system is not going to find that for you.
So that's play crimping the hose game.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, because
Or a
that's,
vacuum leak inside in a high vac system.
That's
Sure.
usually
Yeah,
what a lot of
that's
people
right.
do.
And you're working under the hood.
And
you
it's
got a
over
leak inside
there.
the car.
Right.
and how many times does that happen? So
Yeah.
that's good. Hopefully we helped you on that, Alan, and please stay dry down there. Any other questions out there, Craig, or comments? Remember,
Yes.
guys, this is about you. We're just yakking to get you guys going. Anything?
I'm sorry, you guys remind me of that show, The Talk, with all those ladies talking.
No, we're not the View.
Sim-
If we had their money, we wouldn't be here.
Yes, we would.
We still do
If we
it.
had
Maybe
money,
somewhere
we would
else.
still be working.
That's right. And
We
we're
all
doing-
know that.
We're doing this stuff to help our fellow technicians, so that's our goal.
All right, Brian says, other than OEM scan tools, what scan tools as an aftermarket are in the market that are keeping up with technology such as electronic braking systems?
Ed?
Well, as far as, I'm not sure about electronic braking systems. I know, for example, the Rostec, if you had to service the rear
Volkswagen.
brakes,
Yep.
that's a good tool to use.
But that's Volkswagen Audi specific only.
Right.
Great
Yeah.
tool, by the way, Rostec.
I've got the launch, and I was able to use the launch on a Mercedes-Benz to set the electronic suspension adaptation on the struts, which I was pretty amazed that I was able to do that with that.
And you know the other good thing with Launch? They do some of the electric brake stuff. If you have a car that something doesn't work on, and here's where we're bad in our industry, if you have an issue and you don't tell anyone, you just bitch about it yourself, you really need to contact the company. And a lot of you guys maybe are afraid to do that. How do you do it? You send the email to TST, give us your name and stuff, the version, software you're on, and tool, real easy to find.
What car you were working on,
And
make,
guess what?
model, year, and so
I
forth.
gotta tell you, I'm pretty impressed what they've done at Launch. They give you good updates. Is it the fix-all tool for
No.
every car?
It's not the fixed option,
But
but
hey.
it's pretty good.
I don't think
The
any tool
aftermarket
does
tool.
everything. Even factory tools don't do everything. Nothing does everything.
What do you say,
I
Mike?
got a tool from Mac that does the, I got a Mac tool that does the electronic brakes for Mercedes and Volkswagen.
Oh, yeah, that's a separate tool. I don't know who makes that. That's right. There is a tool out there. How about any comments on this side?
Well, as far as Asian cars, I'm pretty pleased with the Carmen Scan Lite.
Oh, that kicks.
It's
That's a
a
great
little
tool.
slow booting and getting there, but once it gets you there, it does a good job. It has a lot of bi-directional controls. It does the Nissan throttle adaptations, and, you know, for the price of it, it's, and good tool. Domestic, it's not my first tool of choice.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that tool seems to be pretty beefy. It's very good on Asian. Its main setup, of course, was the Hyundai Kia factory tool for a while. Good on all the Japanese cars, obviously, the Asian market cars. Does some Euro cars good. I went in on a Volvo airbag like this. I thought I was gonna have to pull out, you know, a great tool when we're talking European cars. In my opinion, nothing better than AutoLogic.
I second that.
He-
I lived and died by that sort of, I didn't die very often. I lived a lot by that AutoLogic.
I was gonna say, you're still here.
I used it every day, all the time, and it was quick and easy. It's a pricey tool. You have to have enough volume to pay for a tool like that. The software support is
Oh, second
better
to
than
none.
any other support I've ever had from any other company for anything. You have a problem, you email them that log and a little line about what your problem is. Many times, certainly if you get it there before like 11 or 11:30 in the morning, it's fixed the same day.
And by the way, Pierre, since you haven't been using it now, they have a US office right on here in Long Island.
Yeah.
Not far, and they get back to you really
Real fast
quick.
now?
I mean, sometimes they still gotta go to England for something.
Right.
But it's really good.
And if you have a special problem, now I never really got into that too much, but I was a member of a BMW specific group, and some of these guys would try to put engine and transmission packages from one model and another model, and things that we used to be able to do, hot rodder stuff, but with modern cars are almost impossible. And AutoLogic would either write them custom code or figure out a workaround for them using coding from some other model.
Yeah, they do a
It
great
was
job.
pretty amazing what went on there.
And it's good on a lot of
Tremendous.
car lines.
Yeah.
Volvo, in fact, there's a YouTube video that Craig and Adam here threw together.
Oh, that's Land Rover.
Land Rover. So, I mean, good tool. Another thing, my opinion, I always tell guys, ask me, hey G, what's your personal opinion on what scan tool, all-around scan tool, for an inexpensive amount should I purchase for the shop? And that would be a Genesis. Bang for the buck, that tool is damn good. Does it do everything perfect? Again, none of them do, but all-around tool, very helpful, easy to use, decent boot up time.
A lot of
Good
features.
tool. A lot of features for a very reasonable amount.
I think every shop should have at least 3.
Yes, that is
Seems to
key.
be the magic number.
Adam, which 3?
Yeah.
Depends on what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You
Well,
do
let's say-
all makes, not a lot of
I don't
Euro.
want to endorse anybody.
Well, your
So,
opinion on what.
I think you should have 3. Which ones, I don't know, because I don't use
Okay.
it.
What do you think, Bear?
Well, so I'm a tool junkie, I have quite a few, and I think the gentleman was asking which one would be the do-all, maybe I'm misinterpreting it, and like what we just got into, the one do-it-all doesn't exist.
That's right.
It does, it's, and anyone or manufacturer that tells you it does.
Is lying.
Is,
Yeah.
That's the same.
Or they're at
thing.
least wishful. Say they're not lying, they're wishful.
thinking. You know, I've had ones where, you know, right now I'm having trouble with my IDS where it won't communicate with ABS modules. But I put my Snap-on Solus on and I can get them. So immediately that eliminates any wiring or module problem. I have a problem with my tool. But I mean, if I only had the one, I could be spending a lot of time chasing a problem. It doesn't
Now, be
exist.
careful on that Ford IDS, they just had another update. I'm talking like the past couple of
That
days.
brings something to
74
mind.
has been really bad.
Yeah,
Right.
been really bad, they had a
Yeah.
patch, and a lot of times, not only the software update, you gotta update the VCM.
Right.
You know, so if that's
Well,
not.
it'll automatically,
You know,
it'll automatically do
Well,
it.
it depends.
That brings up a thought, you know, if you have a tool and it should be good, and you get a software update and it's screwed up, you can get messed up. What you really should always try to do is have the old copy, don't get rid of the old software.
Oh, you mean
Hope
like
you're-
that one company of years ago?
Don't, yes, which we won't mention.
We won't
by name.
mention, used to work.
They would exchange cartridges and you'd lose features.
God, it'll kill
And,
you.
and you'd have already given back the old cartridge.
Yeah,
But
those
the
things
bottom
are
line is, virtually everything is software updatable today. Keep the old files. Pretty much they don't make it so you cannot go back. You may have to go through some hoops to do it, but your fallback position should always be the last version you had.
So let me ask, let's put it this way to help this tech out. If you only had one scan tool to buy, that's all it is. And we've seen this thing on IATN, which is a great resource itself. But if you only had one tool to buy for yourself or your shop, what would it be? And let's start with Neil. What would it be? One tool to do as much as you can.
I guess a Genesis.
Okay?
I'd say Snap-on, Ferris.
Okay.
See, I have to qualify that. If I was working only on BMW's AutoLogic, if I was working on everything, yeah, I'd probably go OTC also if I was working on everything.
I mean, I would go with OTC myself, the Genesis, Pegasus, one of them.
I only have one.
Oh,
I have the Auto Ingenuity,
good tool.
All
Auto
right.
Ingenuity's a good tool.
and, but I don't do a lot of drivability diagnostics.
Oh, now then he's looking at a different tool. We're looking at drivability gas next, and that would be my pick is the eScan, the burning
Yes.
tool.
Okay.
East
Oh, yeah,
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 so-
but I don't do a lot of computer problems. My business basically is wiring
Okay.
and electrical, so.
I always only had one tool. I either had the Modus or the Ferris. And in my shop, it actually worked because I did everything. I mean, I did motorcycles, lawnmowers, I went the gamut of cars, trucks, and everything. And I liked my Modus, I really did. Wasn't thrilled with the Ferris, just slower. But as an all-around tool, it worked, and I never had the opportunity to work with the OTC though.
Adam?
I missed the snap-on brick. My
Oh,
favorite
the
tool
brick
is a
was
power
great
probe.
mistake. Power probes
Yeah,
are different.
I cannot
Totally
be
different
without
ballgame.
my power probe. I can be without scan tools, but not.
You need a power.
I agree.
One of the great, that's another great tool, but we're talking scan tools here.
Pocket scan tools.
And by the way, you should see that thing on Discovery Channel, that Orange County Chop is not far from us here. Made Power Probe a great motorcycle, man. Pretty neat.
Did they really?
Yeah,
So
they
good
did.
luck.
They just promoted it.
The
Just
Jeff
started
and Bill
with
out
the
there,
bar.
good luck. man.
Crazy.
It's cool.
It
Crazy
was
stuff.
cool.
That's great.
It's off the hook.
Nice.
Well, the number one, it changes. It's interesting. A couple of years ago, I would have said the Genesis hands down. I feel it's slipped a little bit from what it was, and now if it were my one and only would be the Snap-on. But then it's hard to say, is it because what you're familiar with? I mean, that's another subject with any of the tools are only as good as the person that's using them when you know the features that it has and to use them to their fullest extent.
You know, that's true of everything. I know even with information systems, I had Mitchell and AllData for years, but I always liked Mitchell better. And then about 3-4 years ago, I seen Mitchell slip drastically, falling way, way behind. When you have 37 DVDs of information that AllData puts out compared to 10 to 13 or whatever it is,
You gotta be missing something.
yeah, gotta be missing a lot.
Yeah.
And AllData doesn't have everything, but they have a lot. They do a phenomenal job, like we said before, reading up. I mean, that's my first place to go to is AllData, you know, besides IATN and Identifix and all that. But I mean, that's one good source.
Yeah, to get in,
Can we pass a comment on the fact that AllData and Mitchell online versions are not equivalent to the DVD versions?
It'll kill me, but I have to admit that. That's one reason
We
why I
tested
still...
that.
We tested that, and one of the reasons why I still use DVDs. The online version, we have a couple of techs nearby that stop by here at the training center and stuff, and they don't have it. They went back to look and go, hold it, yours has it, how come I don't have it?
You know, there's another source for information, and that is different manufacturers have websites. Now, you know, there's a wide range of usabilities and information
And
levels there,
some for
but,
free.
and some for free.
yeah,
But,
I
yeah, that's right. But the bottom line is, that's still a source out there, and you pay your daily or whatever subscription, and, you know, you have access to that as well. It's, again, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's no good or not useful,
Yeah,
but it's another source.
one of the most important things that I think that all techs should be able to do, or should do, and shop owners too, is keep your scan tools and your information system up to date as best as you can.
Absolutely.
Because updating scan tools fixes, some of the updates fix a lot of bugs. They,
Yeah.
you know, they introduce new models, And same with the information systems. They put in new models, they put in new, wiring diagrams.
Or they fix problems they found in
Keep
old
updated,
problems,
right.
old wiring
Corrections.
diagrams, or old.
Corrections.
And by the way, that's why it's always good to report back to these companies. We all wanna use it and then get mad when something's not in the right place or there's a problem. But if you don't tell them, they don't know. And that's with anything. Okay, Craig, something else
We
coming
have
up?
a real good one from Carrie Byron Hernandez. We had a Prius a few weeks ago that needed a linear valve reset for the ABS light. We couldn't do it with the Genesis or the Launch, so we just got the Auto Ingenuity system with the enhancement for Toyota that can supposedly do that, but we haven't found out how yet. Anyone recommend any tools that work with the hybrids or have any good/bad points about the Auto Ingenuity program? I just want to say I've got on the Carmen scan to look at, let's say, battery control module on a Prius that I couldn't even get on 2 different Toyota factory scan tools.
Yes,
So,
we
that's
ran
it.
across a problem using the factory scan tool. Wouldn't go in, this was a earlier Prius, who knows, some little bug in their software, whatever. But the Carmen went right in and got all that
Wow.
information.
2 different Priuses, actually.
No, but I remember that one, because I even tried it and said that was impossible, it's a factory tool.
So how does the
Nothing that
factory
big.
tool, how does the factory text deal with that?
Well, you gotta remember, here's what happens. Sometimes factory tools, when they're out, they work at that period of time. Like Pierre said, then they do updates. Well,
And
you
some other
think-
feature just fell by the wayside or got
Right.
messed up.
And you think the guy in the dealership is seeing that old car, so he's not reporting back. And aftermarket techs are not good at reporting back.
Yeah.
Or sometimes the factory just prioritizes it at a lower level. I mean,
Yeah,
I just loaded a new software, at the dealer, and it fixed a half a dozen problems we've been beating our heads against for the last few weeks with the old software version. But we've already found 2 new problems. And I loaded it yesterday morning.
Probably better off using the raw stack.
We can't for warranty.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Warranty,
The poor Volkswagen dealer.
For the auto ingenuity question, they have, I would, whoever you purchased it from, that's another thing that comes with, is important with tool, is support.
Support.
Well, where you go in the Auto Ingenuity, usually you've got a selection of screens above, that you go to these menus. And I think it's like the 4th menu over, you'll select in there, and then they'll have another spot that's got like a little drop-down arrow. And you click that little drop-down arrow, and it'll give you
Actuations.
maybe 6 or 7 different special functions that you can do. Higher level in actuations, it'll be, for some of the calibrations or things that you need to do.
Yeah, it's one thing about that tool.
Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I can say that tool's got me out of a jam sometimes, and
And sometimes
That's
it'll
about
put you into a jam. I'll give the guy a word of caution. If you start anything on these hybrids, you start to do any brake resets or whatever, and we've had this in classes where guys, when I was doing a hybrid class, had the Auto Ingenuity, or even had a couple other tools, they started to do a brake function and said, oh, this thing ain't working, it's holding up. It's working, do not go out of it. We all wanna go, don't do that, because now you're screwed. You're gonna have to do a reset, and it's not gonna be easy to get that back. I would say with something like that, if you know someone
which
around that has.
Your Lexus?
That was a different tool.
Oh, yeah, we don't wanna talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, lucky. See, that's why it's good to have, and what I'm gonna suggest to this guy, is try to find someone around that has the factory tool, just in case. And like Adam said, what we can get you out of a lot of binds. I mean, I've had the tool for years. It is a good tool. Jay Horak does a nice job.
I had the triangle of doom on that Prius, and it got me out of it.
Yeah. But if you start looking at the little drop-down menus, they hide a lot of stuff. I mean, we recently had something in a scan tool shootout we did.
Yep.
Okay? And there was something hidden that, hey, we didn't read any documentation on any time we do a scan tool shootout. We just do it like you guys do. You get the tool, you buy it, you gotta use it today.
Push the
You don't have
buttons.
time to jerk around. They had sub-menus hidden somewhere that wasn't easy to find. It wasn't like operating the rest of the tool.
I think though,
So you may want to play with that, read documentation,
Yeah.
call tech support Bevo over at Auto Ingenuity, a sharp guy, he can help walk you through it. Overall, in my opinion, I think it's a good tool, I'll agree with that.
yeah, it's not a fortune, so I mean, they can't spend all that money into making it polished and shiny.
Well, they try. All these companies try their best. They gotta buy information, this guys don't understand, they gotta buy the information, it's not free. And sometimes the information, the way it's given to
You
them
know, all that.
from a manufacturer. Well,
What country do they not buy it?
we know
The
everything
other
in China doesn't
thing,
buy.
the other thing that's not a tool, but is very important, we kind of skirted it here, is if you can network with other shops, if you can have a non-combative relationship with other shops, your other professionals around you, then you can work with each other's strengths. You know, if you're good, you're going to have a lot of work anyway. And if one of you has one tool and the other has another tool, and you have some type of a equal sharing and lending agreement, or you just bounce ideas off each other. Sometimes it's good to have somebody local that can help you out with a problem too.
Yeah, that's good, you know, like Alan does up there in West Point.
Right.
Those guys, there's 4 shops, they all each year buy a different factory tool, and then they pay for the updates, and you know what they do? They use the Napa guy to say, hey, Neil needs it today. They give
He
the
runs
Napa
it
guy,
over.
runs it over there, and they run it back and forth, and they keep track of it.
That's a good idea.
Graham was
Do it for years.
I had a guy, Graham, with a BMW shop. He was a block away from me. You know, you'd think we would have been at each other's throats, but we had an agreement like that. And you know something? I found that customers, instead of thinking, you know, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, they respected me a lot, both of us a lot more, because we were being professional. Nobody thinks badly of a doctor who consults with another doctor.
Correct.
I think they think more highly of you, that you are trying to get the absolutely best answer for their situation. And it's just more professional.
Well, that's a case in point. We were our first crack at programming a new PCM for an 03 Grand Am, and it was our first with the Tech 2, and bought the 2-day subscription and had never done it before, and it's invaluable. We had some questions and problems, and I had, you know, through our relationships we've developed with TSD and other training groups, you know, I have 3 or 4 people that call and you know, talked us through it, and didn't quite get the answer we were looking for, but we got it programmed, and we probably wouldn't have it without having the you know, the relationships we've developed to get it done.
Sometimes the best tool isn't the tool.
Right. It's some, you know.
And that's what this is about. I mean, that's the big thing. I was interviewed today from Motor Rage magazine for something they're putting out, and that's one of the big points I brought up. I thought about, you know, for years we always see when we have our TSD seminars, it's not only listening to whoever our guest instructor is, it's at break time or before or after, guys
Networking.
talking to each other, networking and going, hey, Bear, did you come across that problem? And helping each other out and getting some phone numbers.
Yeah.
You know,
And bouncing problems off each other.
You know, someone bought a particular tool, and you know, the next month you can see them and
See if they liked it.
see if they liked it, or that, you know, they had some problems, or it's good bud, or it's bad, you know, bad bud.
Hey, that's how it,
Anytime you buy one, you know, nothing against them, but the manufacturer's going to tell you it's great.
right,
They
that's
don't
why
have
it's
a
more
problem.
believable when we
Right,
do something.
Right, someone that's.
When you guys look at some of the stuff we have on YouTube with the scan tool shootout, no one pays us to do it. We come out and do it, the guys you see here, and sometimes a couple other different guys who couldn't make it tonight. We hook it up to the cars, if it works, that's what we tell you. If it don't work, oh well, that's not our problem, but we know what it is to go buy tools and then something doesn't work, and they told you it worked.
And it's always in a crunch, isn't it?
Oh.
It's Friday afternoon and everything's going away
Hey.
fast.
We just had that tonight with our new camera system that didn't work.
There you go.
Because it was last minute. So we're back on hold, hopefully it sounds good.
Yeah, Carrie says, thanks. This might be a good one for Adam or even Pascal back there. What do you use to reset an oil change light and service lights on a Porsche?
Durametric you can buy. It's priced about $1,000. It's about the best you'll get as far as a generic. If you're gonna get into the Porsche game at all. But it's an iffy tool. It's not.
What's it called?
not
Durametric?
Durametric.
And Mr. Pascal, you have anything to say?
Don't really want to endorse it past that.
I don't really want to comment, but I haven't found anything really dependable. And Have a good relationship with the dealer.
That always helps, right?
That helps all the time. Develop a good rapport.
Yeah,
with the
develop a
dealer.
good rapport.
With the dealer.
Any other questions there, or maybe we'll go on to something else?
You could use AutoLogic.
Well, some people don't have it. And by the way, AutoLogic has at least a lease type program nowadays, which they didn't have years back.
No, I had to buy mine.
Yeah, back then they didn't have that, but they have a lease program, so AutoLogic is pretty cool and would work on that. So what else is on your mind? How about in the back, you guys? Jerry, Vasco?
I got a car that might help some, some of these guys out there. I had a Lexus there today, a four-wheel drive Lexus, IS 250, and the guy had a noise, and it turned out to be a tire noise. Thought it was originally a bearing noise, but the way the tire's wearing, and I suggested we rotated the tires, and the noise went away. So obviously went in the back, it wasn't making it in the back. But I suggested an alignment the way the tire was wearing. Check the alignment's almost perfect. But I've seen this in the past. I know Lexus has a problem with the four-wheel drives, but it had pulling problems. This car did not have a pulling problem, but I'm almost positive that because of the four-wheel drive, causes the tires to wear prematurely on the inside. Do you guys have anything where we can give to them and me? I mean, to verify that is Lexus coming up with a different alignment specs?
Not that I know of.
What are the specs to begin with? What kind of, what tone?
Basically zero for tow.
And where's it wearing
Inside, the inside.
The inside?
I think part of it also has to do with, when you do hit the gas, what lifts up and what kind of bump steer you get, when the suspension moves and it's under power.
I've run into a lot of this at Volkswagen, and I think it's because they have such soft bushings in the suspension to make the car ride nice, that, again, torque, it's not the lifting, I think, so much as torque steer and stuff like that.
The bump steer.
The only thing I've noticed is that some brands of tires seem to react better with certain models of car.
Well, what I suggest to the
And I don't
customer-
think there's a universal answer. I think that you have to kind of find out which brands or which models of tires work best on that particular
Usually
car.
whatever it came with.
Well,
Not necessarily, no, that's not true.
I suggested to the customer to rotate the tires every 5,000 miles without, fail.
We've found that just rotates, all the tires now have the choppiness.
Shouldn't they be doing that anyways?
Yeah, they should be, but, people
I
don't.
think it's
We
not,
lose
it's
that
not,
track?
it's not universally a cure. In fact, it's often not, it doesn't fix it.
Well, but at least it weighs the tires evenly.
That part's true, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Well,
And you get paid to rotate them.
There you go.
That's something that people forget to do and charge,
Right, yeah,
Every 7, every 2 oil changes, or maybe every 1 oil change,
yes.
And then crack those drums off and adjust. That's another, half hour to get. You gotta think about that kind of stuff.
And you're right there too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're right at the wheel.
Why would you not?
yeah.
So,
Well, when you guys do a brake job, let's talk about brake jobs. When you guys do a brake job, do you bleed the brakes?
I'm very anal with a brake. You want me to describe my brake job? Here's my
European
brake.
cars have .4. You're supposed to do it every 2 years. Square.
My
But
brake job
I'm
is
saying
as
if you're
follows.
doing a brake job, you put new pads on, what's your procedure when you do a front wheel
Here's my
brake job?
procedure for, say, just, doesn't matter whether it's front or all four or rear. I always take a vacula type tool and I suck the reservoir dry. I pour in new fluid, I get rid of any shit that's in, stuff that's in there. I clean it out. If it's old and it's a car I haven't serviced regularly, because I flush brake fluid every 2 years, I remove the reservoir and clean it clean. Don't want any of that stuff going through the system.
Especially an ABS system, right?
Especially in ABS. I refill the system with the right fluid.
Not the cheap stuff at
No
Kmart?
playing around. And not old fluid. I don't pour a cup of water in it to see if it really can hold that much water.
Okay, so
I
now
clean-
you do the
I- so
front
I-
brakes.
I put the bleeder on, the suction bleeder like a vacula on the bleeder, and when I go to compress the piston back, I'm sucking the fluid out as I compress it back, so that nothing goes back upstream.
Very important.
And I make sure I'm pulling something down from the reservoir. I make sure that the boots are intact, that there's no corrosion on the pistons, that there's no corrosion wear or other issues with the sliders, or the pins on the cars I work on have the rubber bushings in the calipers. People ignore the fact that that pin can't have too much friction on it. If your inner pad wore 30% more than your outer pad, you got to either replace or at least service those pin bushings. I see it, you know, a lot.
Servicing the slides.
It's got to slide like it always did, or you're never going to get that service life out of it. I never change discs without putting bolts on the discs to the hat and putting a dial indicator on it. You guys use a Pro Cut and check them all the time, but I always use the factory discs, and I found that they were extremely good in my case, as long as they hadn't been dropped on their ear.
Oh, that delivery guy.
Right? They were good when they left the factory, but now they're a potato chip. And I make sure its dial indicates true. Now in my case, for years, the spec with BMW was 21/100ths of a millimeter, I think, off the top of my head. And that was not, my spec was 2/100ths of a millimeter. I wanted it perfect. And I had 1,000ths of a millimeter dial indicator. It was a little over the top, but I'm a little over the top.
Good.
I also followed a bedded, cleaned off the hat, the inside of the, you know, if it was taking a disc off and putting it back for some reason, make sure there's no corrosion on that or the hub surface. And I used to use a BG Pro.
To clean the hub? Because this is a big thing out there, where the hub hat goes on there. Sometimes where the studs are, there's a lot of rust, and if that doesn't fit on right.
I like a Scotch lock, what's that, the bristle disc.
Bristle disc.
The bristle discs, that's that one.
Drill, right over the
Yeah,
stud.
Yeah,
Right,
right over stud. I got that too, that thing's great.
Well, since I didn't have studs, my cars all had bolts.
So excuse us for breathing.
Now the other thing is, BG makes a battery terminal spray that's supposed to be used for battery terminals, a clear spray that goes on
clear stuff. Good stuff.
very, very thin, and I would spray the inside of the hat and the hub so that it wouldn't corrode again. It also makes it real easy to clean the next time.
And get off.
And it also makes it so when you dial indicate, you just spray a little bit though, you don't want to build it up. And you let that dry and it's tight. No corrosion's going to happen. I also made sure that the discs were clean, not any compounds on them from manufacturing or shipping protection. And then there was a BMW procedure a lot of people don't follow, which was a bed-in procedure of those brakes afterwards, which is 35 miles an hour to 15, hard stopping 10 to 15 times with a 0.2 of a mile interval between to let them cool.
Guess who studied the manual?
And if you want to be really anal, you let it cool for 45 minutes and then you do the same thing from 55 to 35, but you don't do that all the
How
time.
much was that brake job?
A lot.
Yeah,
Time
yeah.
and materials. I wasn't competing on price.
What was the name of the stuff you sprayed on the disc? We were asked online.
BG battery terminal spray.
Yeah, the clear one.
I forgot the number, but it's like a pinkish, purpley pinkish label.
So you
on it.
can't just use the stuff at the parts store across the street. This was specific.
It's a
like.
specific thing, and it was made to coat battery terminals. Most of the stuff you get from battery terminal spray is sticky gummy in nature.
Right.
This is more like a clear lacquer type of a thing, but very, very fine.
Yeah,
A molecule thick.
You only use that on the rotor hat
Rotor head and the hub.
and the hub itself.
Right, where they meet.
All right, no, because I want.
Not on a disc surface,
No,
not on a
I
friction
watched the
surface.
shop actually spray stuff on the disc surface.
No,
and
no,
I
no,
looked at it,
bad
I'm like,
news.
crazy.
No.
No, there's
So that's why-
there's
that's
stuff
why
they
I
sell
wanted-
for that.
Good point.
That's why I
There's
wanted to
stuff they sell
clarify
for that.
that. That's why I wanted to clarify that.
Only on
That's clear.
non-friction surfaces.
But
The
they
Lube Guard
also
sells
put-
something that does that though.
Yes, there
Right.
is something now to spray on the rotor, special
Oh, I
stuff
forgot to mention.
for that coating like the GM rotors have.
Right.
Yes.
I also put a dab of I used to use, I forgot who it
World
was.
cream?
Copper paste, anti-seize.
All right, this is a long enough brake job.
All right.
On the hub with the disc goes
Okay,
on.
so let's ask this.
So there's
Talking about
Pierre's brake
brakes.
job.
I have a question real quick. On the brake job, I've had a lot of shops, because I do a lot of work at other shops. And there's some, like me, I'm a big fan on clean the slides or replace the slides and then put the right lube on the slides. A lot of shops don't put lube on the slides and they say
That's
because
true.
the grease attracts
Dirt, and then you start getting grooves in it.
Right,
at
which
times.
to a point makes sense, but if you've got a pad and you've got a slide and it's metal on metal, what are you gonna get? You're gonna get rust unless there's some kind of protection.
I say
That's
lube.
correct. And you know something?
Right.
You gotta do
Dry
it.
for a while.
I've used different greases on the slides, and my
That
favorites.
molly stuff.
I used to like Stay Lube the blacks or
Right,
really dark
yeah,
graphite
that's-
looking stuff. Also, there was
Sliding
a,
things?
on the sliders of the bracket.
On the metal
Oh,
slide.
metal.
I also
Permatex makes
used
one.
Silglide in the pins.
Right.
That's good stuff.
Silglide's good stuff. There was a, God, I forgot the name of it now. It was a blue grease that came from one of the,
He's getting you.
The
Tech-
Permatex?
no,
Oh.
maybe Tech or somebody had it, I think. You know, like the people who sell wheel weights and stuff
Right.
like that. They had a blue brake grease that was very viscous, very thick. Of course, it would attract dirt, but it was great for those high, you know, those M cars or whatever that got used hard.
Okay, now I got a
Make it
question
slide.
for you. To
Did
cut
all
you-
that too.
To cut you, Pierre.
Yeah.
How about wheel studs? I was teaching the other day and I seen some guy spray the studs with penetrating oil. Wheel studs.
You mean so that it would lubricate to go on?
So it would lubricate to go on, easy to get them off, but he sprayed them down good.
I wouldn't do that.
Now, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, that was my opinion, and I'll tell you a little more in a second.
Are you gonna change the torque?
You're gonna change the torque and possibly
Allow
it may
to
start
listen.
backing out.
Right.
When you go to torque these
Now-
wheels down,
But typically, you'd probably torque it tighter because it's easier to,
to go in against the wheel.
Now,
yeah.
Not only that, but if you're using a spray on the stud,
It can
wouldn't
go
some of that
anywhere.
On the friction
rotor.
surface?
It's
Yeah,
possible.
no,
It's possible.
what I've done for years but there's always a but. I've used a copper anti-seize, and I mean a drop, a little dot on each thread,
Yeah.
never on the cone of the stud or
just to
bolt.
keep the rust out.
Just to keep them corroding, and I've always torqued with a torque wrench. Not gunning it, not torque sticking it, but a torque wrench. And I've always gone to the top of the spec. If the spec was 75 to 90, I did 90, always. And the other thing is, I always snug all the wheels. Jerry taught this, I think, in a class years ago. Start with the bottom one, because you don't want to catch it on the hub-centric part, and you start bringing them in, but you bring the bottom bolt or stud in first, so that it pulls the wheel in flat. And you make sure they're all kind of snug before you start torquing.
All right, my thing with the penetrant is it's gonna burn off as soon as it gets hot, so it's not gonna be there anymore, but you're gonna torque it wrong.
Does anyone here use penetrating oil on studs?
No.
I mean, I remember reading somewhere, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
this is years back, that there was some sort of a case where, someone sued over a wheel coming off and they found penetrating oil on there. And I don't believe there's any manufacturer that'll tell you to put penetrating oil on.
Actually, they all say to do it dry. Every one of them says
Yeah.
dry.
Because it does change the torque.
They also say to do spark plugs dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I've done too is I've taken thread chasers. If it's a little bit rusty,
Yeah.
I put it around, I just kind of go.
Clean
over
it up
couple
a bit.
times.
Definitely.
If it's real bad, I just change the stuff.
Now, speaking of spark plugs, what do you do in spark plugs?
Copper anti-seize.
100,000 miles.
Yeah.
They're gonna come out real well.
And a cylinder head.
Especially on a Ford.
Ford never had any problems with that.
The Ford Triton, what, there's 4 different kits to get the plugs out? I'm
Yeah.
guaranteed every one of us
There's
has
a
all
few
4 of
guys
them.
flying around the country doing it.
Yep.
That's their full-time job.
What do you do? Do you put anything on
Yeah.
threads?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little Loctite if you put, Loctite, a little That's for the insert.
I was at a shop,
A little-
and couldn't get the plug out.
Terry must
On
have
April
a
Fool's
Loctite
Day.
thread insert after you strip out the
See, I was
thread.
thinking of those stripped out ones.
Yeah.
Now, the copper anti-seize, but a little bit, you can make a misfire and get a P0300 or specific if you put too much on there. There are a lot of guys
it's
get the
not.
brush in there, you're not gooping the shit on it, you're
No,
putting
no,
a
just a
little,
dab.
excuse me,
Right.
a little bit.
Pass.
The Brill Green commercials, a little dab will do.
I did one of his. That
And-
word comes up, we
And the
apologize.
other thing is torque the spark plugs. I see a lot of
Uh,
them that leak past the ceramic, between the ceramic and the metal because they were cranked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stretch it, snap it.
Those were those kids just out of school now. We all know how to tighten a spark plug by now.
What do you think of the parts stores trying to sell you their, like, they have a good special on these, but they're the OE type metal on the plug? You know what I mean? Like the OE application, let's say, is a Champion on a Chrysler, but
Right.
they want to sell you an Autolite, but it's the same
I'd stay
OE
away.
material.
My opinion, and looking at, I do a lot of state OBD2 training stuff, a lot of problems why people can't get monitors to go or can't get rid of particular DTCs is because they didn't use the OE plug for the car. Now, you may love the Bosch plug or AC plug or Champion or Joe Schmo brand. Guess what? It's not specifically designed for that engine.
I would
I
say
would
whatever
stay
came
away.
in that car when it was new, that's what should go in it.
And look at BMWs now, not using Bosch.
Actually, that's, a point is, there's an example. They offer a Bosch number and a NGK number for virtually everything.
Yep.
And I found personally that almost all of those, the NGK works and the Bosch has issues. And yet Bosch used to be their only spark plug.
Right.
I had a GM box truck with a 6.0 in it, and I got plugs. They were AC plugs, and then it turns out I ended up going back to the dealer. The dealer had updated the plug. I put those plugs in and got rid of a misfire. And every book said it was the old number, and yet there was an update. And we
So
didn't
they
know
knew they
about
had a
it.
problem.
Right, but I mean that
There
kicked
you
me
go.
for
Put it
3
in the
days.
ignition and
There you go.
it'll pop right through the.
You blow everything,
No,
no problem.
Plugs, you will run into a problem. Same with filters.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about people putting filters. The early days,
That's just annoying though. I mean, just give me some frickin' spark. Why do I need to deal with all these different plugs?
Because they've
I
got
have to
all
deal
kinds
with
of funky
such a-
strategies.
Exactly.
right,
Yeah.
the heat ranges are not like
They've
years
got,
ago.
fuel
one
strategies, they have
higher.
spark control strategies. They got-
After ion sensing
Stuff.
and things like that.
And maybe the chemistry of the fuel changed,
You know?
A lot.
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
So there's,
nothing's standing still.
Craig has another question for us.
Coming from Fred Byron.
Oh, Fred
Oh,
Byron,
Fred.
wow,
Hi,
one
Fred.
of our TST members. How are you, Fred?
When putting 2 new tires on a front-wheel drive, where do you put the new tires? I've heard recently that they should be in the rear, but back in the day, they recommended to be put on the front.
That's because they want.
The lawyers want them in the
understeer.
rear.
Yeah, they
Here's the
want it to be-
legality. Say you're going around a corner. Your front end slides out, you hit the telephone pole with the front end. Whose fault is that? It's yours. Go around a corner. The rear end slides out, you hit the telephone pole in the middle and kill somebody. Whose fault is that? You can sue the manufacturer or the guy who put the tires on. They want more traction in the back, so you'll always plow in with the front when you overdrove the corner.
Wow,
And it's the CYA situation. It's the same reason they run low tire pressures in the front and high tire pressures in the back,
They always
to the
have
detriment of tire wear.
understeer into the cars.
Yes, they want you to, they want that nose to hit the telephone pole, so they don't get sued.
Well, and in the other case, if you're looking at what better tires to put where, if you have a blowout up front, and it's a front wheel drive, you can at least steer the car. You can do something with it. If it goes in the back,
Yeah,
It's
the
pretty
back
tough.
end comes around on you.
comes around on you. And,
If it's a front wheel drive
But-
car,
A
I
couple
always
of
put the
minutes.
new ones in the front.
The old rule was put the new ones in the front.
Well, 'cause that's your
The
your
lawyers
driveway.
speak rules.
What's
put the new ones in
actually,
the back.
is it actually better for your customer to have them in the front?
Yes.
the traction,
Unless he's a lawyer.
unless he's a lawyer. Now, you know,
Or he knows a
amazing,
lawyer.
we have a couple of minutes left. And we don't know how you guys like this or disliked it, but we're gonna bring up a whole bunch of topics coming up in the future ones. Something about are your tools protected right? We're gonna have a little interview with this guy Jim Bradnini from ProTech. Not because they're one of our sponsors, but this is something near and dear to me, knowing a couple of people that got their tools stolen. And mine
Right,
years
Basil?
back. Oh, one guy's sitting right here, that's right, his tools
Oh, yeah.
got stolen. But years back, working in a repair shop, in a dealership, thank God I always chained my box. I was kind of anal, but the guys that didn't, their boxes were gone.
Disappeared.
You changed your box?
Oh, hell yeah.
What'd you change it to?
There was a big, nice pole,
Yeah.
and this other guy, we chained them around. I was anal with my box, man. I didn't want that crap to go bye-bye.
Oh, man.
It was worth more than my car.
Yeah.
It
I
still
know.
works. My car. So we'll be talking about a lot of things. We're gonna see if we can get our buddy Scott Brown on from IATN. Scott will be coming out, I know at some point, we've been speaking to come back out and do a seminar for us. Other stuff that we'll be doing, speaking about a lot of different issues for scan tools, equipment. What do you think about equipment? You know, do you really need to cut rotors? Whatever's on your mind. You could email us some stuff in. Anything you really want to speak about, this is your roundtable besides ours. So we're just trying to get this started. I want to thank you again for your time. Thanks to the TST board for taking another night of your life out and showing up. And thanks to the guys in the back that came up. We appreciate them coming up. And we'll see you soon.
How about love for the cameraman?
Cameraman. Maybe if we had our better. By the way, guys, how is the sound and picture quality out there? Is the sound okay? What are they saying?
Well, no one's complaining, which is a good thing.
Good. Okay.
And
Well, let's give one last plug. Next week again, we start with the VW Audi data blocks and CAN systems with Augie. This is a great seminar. You get a good handout.
This guy knows a lot of stuff. He's sharp.
This dude is sharp. He's a real sharp guy. This is going to be a great class. I'm sure you will work on those great VWs out there. My eyes are rolling in case you can't see it. At any rate, you need to know this information. Monday up in Auburn, Massachusetts. Tuesday, Southbury, Connecticut. Wednesday, good old Toto in New Jersey. And Thursday here, Mahopac, New York. And if not, you could join us on the web from anywhere.
On Thursday.
On Thursday night, yep, on Thursday night's a simulcast. And of course, there's a handout that comes along with it. You'll see the pricing on our website. And don't forget to check out our whole bunch of free stuff that we have up there. Upcoming fuel system, something or
fuel
another.
system diagnosis.
Thank you. Dave Hobbs, well, I can't remember everything. Dave Hobbs, myself, and Pete Meyer from Motor Age magazine. That's absolutely free. Check the other ones we've done before, all the P10 ones, and some TST ones for free. Oh, and another big one coming up. Our BMW specialist here is going to be doing a great class on BMWs. We'll be on cars. That'll be a little different. That won't be a round table one. It'll be something about cars. And again, you can ask questions just like tonight. So from TST headquarters here in New York, have a good night.
Thank you.